Hey guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about what just happened with the American elections. If you've been listening to this show for any length of time, I've never made my personal political views a secret. I'm a very progressive person. I believe in things like equal rights for all, open borders, taxing billionaires out of existence, strict regulations on corporations, universal health care, modern monetary theory, and universal basic income. And equality for all, that includes women, that includes trans people, that includes everyone, racial minorities, immigrants, everyone. But above everything else, I do believe in democracy. It's messy, it's chaotic, it's frustratingly slow, and I don't agree with him on much, but one of the things Winston Churchill said was it's the worst form of government except for all the others. And I'm not a fan of Winston Churchill, but he was right about that. I've often said in all seriousness that my political views were shaped by superheroes, and that's one of the reasons why I continue to love superheroes. That's why I keep reading these books. That's why I keep watching these movies and TV shows. That's why I keep playing these video games. It's because the values that are important to me, that I live my life by, those values came from superheroes. I grew up in a relatively comfortable, middle-class, white, suburban, conservative family. Idolized Ronald Reagan. My family had a patriarch in the form of my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who was not only a hardcore Republican, but he was not shy about his views on race and anti-Semitism, and though he was a loving grandfather, those views were abhorrent. I knew that then, I know that now, but I never spoke up about it. I felt like that was a door that I didn't want to open. And I do regret that now. And instead of being shaped by those values from my family, I was shaped by the values I saw in superhero stories, comics, TV shows, movies. These things I consumed, they taught me the values that I carry on to this day and the values that I am raising my children with, the values I looked for when I was single and dating, and the values that my wife and I share. The values I try to impart to my students, and in a small way that I try to impart through this show when we talk about these movies. I learned from those stories about tolerance, respect, self-sacrifice, and most importantly, the idea that you do the right thing because it's the right thing. The whole idea of power and responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. And we have that responsibility as citizens in a democratic country. That is a responsibility not everybody has. That's a responsibility. That's a power. That's a power that not everybody has. In dictatorial countries, they don't have that power. In countries with the false veneer of elections, like Russia, they don't have that power. Even in America, lots of people don't have that power. Immigrants don't have that power. Children don't have that power. Ex-convicts who have paid their debt to society, mind you, don't have that power. We do. And we have a responsibility to use that power in a way that will make life better for everyone. I also learned that bullies can't be tolerated. And I learned that Nazis should be punched in the fucking face. And that's why whenever people bemoan the popularity of superheroes or say that superheroes are a stepping stone to the sort of toxic ideology that won this election, I always push back. Always, always, always. Because I believe these stories truly do teach us how to be better people. And I say that because that's what these stories have done to me. In re-listening to some of the SCP Classic episodes with Derek that had recently aired, I'm confident to say that he felt the same about this. So what now? I don't know. Honestly, I think we're in an even bleaker situation than we were in 2016, and it's hard to see any silver linings. And you know what? Anything I say about how it's all going to be okay is not going to sound genuine. You can't see me here, but if you could see me right now, I'm just a straight cis white guy from the middle class, and I don't even live in America anymore. I live in a different country. I don't know what I can do except maybe offer some solidarity and continue to do my part in elections from abroad. I mean, obviously, I will continue to put out this podcast and write my books and try to educate people as best I can. And if nothing else, maybe those discussions and those stories can make you feel better knowing that there's someone out there who feels the same way you do, or maybe can just provide you some escapism when we talk about these movies or when you read my books. And maybe that's what you're going to need, because I'm afraid there will be some dark times. And I know that's not a lot to offer. I really wish I had more to offer you. But the next several episodes that you'll be listening to, up until the first episode that'll be coming out in the new year, all of these episodes were recorded from July until early September. So any references you will hear to the election or anything like that, those are going to be laughably outdated. And if it seems like those discussions are too frivolous, it's because we were in a different environment. I don't yet have any new episodes scheduled to record, but I do hope to do some, as I'll be on a break from some of my classes in the next 2 months. If you want to join me in escaping for a bit and discussing superhero movies, then please reach out to me through the contact form on the website. The link is in the show notes for guest applications. And now, for anyone listening who supported Trump, this is now actually the second time I've recorded this message. The first time, this section was just filled with a lot of fuck yous. But I decided to do something different. And instead, I want to say this. Maybe you hate Trump, but you had your reasons to justify why you supported him. Maybe you truly believe the economy was better under him. Maybe you were angry at the Biden administration. Maybe you're angry about the border. Maybe you thought that since your state has an abortion measure on the ballot, you could vote for Trump and also vote in favor of abortion access. Maybe you're angry about Gaza and you decided to abstain or voted for Trump. And to all that, I've got a few things to say. But before I get to that, let me say something else. In middle schools and high schools across America, it's been reported that boys are going up to girls and saying, "Your body, my choice." Your body, my choice. And this is not just internet rumors. I personally know people, parents, who've had their daughters said to them. Now, I know most of this podcast audience is male. If you are one of those males, then that means you're also something else. Maybe you're a father, a husband, a brother. Maybe you're just a friend to a woman. How would you feel if your daughter or wife or sister or even just a female friend came to you and said that some guy told her, "Your body, my choice"? Would you find it funny? If you're one of those women who voted for Trump and a guy comes up to you or your daughter or one of your friends, would you find it funny? I don't know about you, but I sure as shit would not. There's been a lot of talk in this election about masculinity and what it means to be a man. Well, for me, being a man has fuck all to do with how many hours you spend in the gym, or what kind of car you drive, or how much money you make, or how many women you sleep with, or whatever sort of macho bullshit. None of that. Being a man is about responsibility. Do you take care of your people? Do you support and uplift them? Do you pick them up when they're down? That is what being a man is all about. This performative bullshit from people like Donald Trump and Joe Rogan and Elon Musk and Andrew Tate, all of that shit is the mark of a little boy who is extremely insecure. A real man doesn't give a fuck about what other people think, but he does care about what happens to his people. And he steps up when those people are threatened. I don't mean physically throwing punches or anything like that. I mean you step up. You defend them physically, if you have to, but also emotionally, verbally. And you take care of them. You let them know that they can feel safe with you. Now take that a step further. Imagine a woman in your life is pregnant. Someone you care about. Maybe it's your wife. Maybe it's your daughter. Maybe it's your friend. Or your sister. Imagine there's a complication. She goes to the hospital, and she's told, your pregnancy is non-viable. Your baby will not survive. That's terrible enough. Now imagine the next words she hears are, we can't do anything to protect you until your life is in danger. So you will have to wait until you become septic. Once that happens, we may not be able to save you in time. And even if we do, there's no guarantee that you'll ever be able to get pregnant in the future. How would you react? Do you think that sounds fair? Now think about a friend or relative in your life who is disabled. Imagine they're no longer able to afford the life-saving health care they need. Trump tried to destroy the ACA once, Obamacare. It was only thanks to 3 Republican votes that went against him that he failed. If he gets a trifecta again, Congress, House, presidency, which it looks very likely at the time of this recording, there won't be any John McCain to save the ACA. Your friend's life-saving medication, your life-saving medication, if you are that person, it's now too expensive. Guess what happens then? You die. What about your friends or relatives who might be trans? They now have a literal target on their back. First statement after winning the election, Trump has explicitly promised to go after trans people. His supporters are foaming at the mouth to start launching violent campaigns against trans people. What about immigrants? And I don't just mean undocumented people. Trump, in the past, pursued the idea of revoking naturalization. So even if you're an immigrant who went through the naturalization process, you are now a target. Imagine being torn out of your home in the middle of the night, separated from your family, thrown into a detention center, and sent to another country. No way of contacting your family again. Does that sound far-fetched? Trump did that once. He will do it again. And he'll go further than he did before. Because last time, he had people around him who restrained his worst impulses. This time, his administration will be stocked with sycophants. And people who are even more sadistic and sociopathic than he is. If that's even possible. Now, think of those people in your life. Women, racial minorities, sexual minorities. Go up to them. Your kid, your wife, your sister, your friend. Look them in the eye and then say these words. The price of eggs is more important to me than your life. Can you do that? So when these people in your life are angry at you and won't just agree to disagree, this is why. Agree to disagree is for things like tax policy, not whether certain people are allowed to exist, not whether it's okay to let women bleed out in parking lots before they can get medical care. Now, as far as the reasons you possibly voted for Trump, first off, the notion that the economy was better. Let's wind the clock back to 2008 and the Great Recession. That recession was caused by massive deregulation of the housing and financial markets. As a result, a huge bubble was created. When that bubble popped, it drove the entire global economy into a recession. If you want a full explanation of this, I can recommend two films. The first is The Big Short, which is a fictionalized version of the true story and does a good job of explaining it all. The other is Inside Job, which is a documentary. Yeah, obviously not going to be as entertaining as The Big Short, but it goes into more depth. I'd suggest watching The Big Short first for a basic overview and then go deeper with Inside Job. Now, when Obama came into office, it was in the midst of this recession. Did he do everything right? Absolutely not. I feel he didn't do enough to bail out the people who really deserve to be bailed out. The victims who lost everything because the bankers and the executives gambled with our money like drunken sailors. But he did stem the bleeding, and it took a lot of work, and he was stymied at almost every single return by massive Republican obstruction. And yet, he did manage to turn the economy around. That economy was the economy that Donald Trump inherited. So those early years of the Trump presidency, when the economy was good, that was Obama's economy. And the latter half of his term is when Trump's economic policies started to take hold. And then we had COVID, and the economy plunged into the toilet. Now, you might say, well, he couldn't control COVID. No, he couldn't. But he could have minimized the disastrous effects of the pandemic. He didn't. The American response to the pandemic was among the worst in the world. And I know this because I live in one of the countries where it was determined that we had one of the best reactions to COVID. We didn't have months-long lockdowns here in Japan because we took the proper measures. And I have no love for the Japanese government that was in place at that time, but they did a much better job than Trump ever did. Now, when Biden came into office, the policies he enacted right away helped alleviate the pain of the COVID economy. Again, was this perfect? No, absolutely not. But he did do things like give checks to everyone and also instituted a child benefit that cut child poverty in half. Half. That plan was not renewed. And you know why? Because of Republicans. The same people you just voted to get control of the government one more time. Among those Republicans who would not vote to bring back the child tax credit, J.D. Vance, Trump's new vice president. Yes, inflation has been bad these past few years. And I say that as someone who lives on the other side of the world. Inflation has been really bad here in Japan as well. So you know what that means? It means that inflation is not a domestic issue. It is a global issue. It's not isolated to America. That is the after effect of the pandemic. There was such a massive economic slowdown that when a bunch of money came back into the economy, costs went up. That's how inflation works. When there's too much money in the economy, the market reacts by raising costs. That's not because of Biden's policies. In fact, whereas Trump had a worse response to COVID than almost every other country, Biden had a better response to inflation than almost any other country. America has had a lower rate of inflation compared to almost every other nation, in large part thanks to Biden's policies. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, and his Fed chair did not help things. But if Biden had a Democratic House and at least 2 additional Democrats in the Senate who would vote to end the filibuster, he could have done a lot more about inflation. Trump's policies are not going to help inflation. If you think the cost of eggs is going to go down under him, you are wildly uninformed. He has a plan to implement across-the-board tariffs. And despite what he tells you, this is not a tax on foreign countries. This is a sales tax. The purpose of tariffs, the whole reason they exist, is to increase the price of imported goods. This is so domestic goods have a better chance of competing against foreign goods. For example, a tariff on cars means that Toyota or BMW will be more expensive than Ford or GM. Now that's good when there's a domestic option in place. It is good to buy American and support your local economy and support the jobs in your country. Very good. I definitely agree with that. But we live in a globalized world, and many of the goods you buy every day, there is no domestic option for these. We saw this during the pandemic. Remember when there were all those shortages? Because of the supply chain. Because many things are imported from other countries. And even things that are made in America. There are very few products that are 100% American sourced and manufactured. Right now, I am recording this on a Mac. You look on the bottom of this computer, it says it was assembled in China. And it's made with parts that came from China and other parts of the world. I teach employees in the Japanese semiconductor industry. I teach them English. And when they tell me about their work, they tell me about the supply chains that they deal with every single day. This part comes from Thailand. This part comes from Vietnam. This part comes from China. They're assembled over here in Malaysia, and so on and so forth and so forth. Now, this computer I'm recording on, if I had bought this next year after Trump's tariffs go in place, the price would have gone up by at least 10%. Think about food. A lot of food is imported from other countries. A lot of ingredients that go in food. A lot of materials. Steel, for example. If the price of the materials go up, the price of the goods go up. And then, if you start doing across-the-board tariffs on other countries, you run the risk of a trade war, which is when other countries respond by raising tariffs on your product. So that means the products that you have coming into your country are going to be higher priced, but that also means the stuff you export, you won't be getting as much money back for those goods. So, your desire for lower inflation, I get that. But the tariff plan, it will raise your costs, possibly to levels you've never expected. Another driver of inflation, price gouging. Many corporations have decided to take advantage of the inflation, and they raised prices higher than they needed to. One particular example, there was a supermarket chain, I think it was Kroger's. They were trying to merge with another supermarket chain. When that merger failed, in places where there was competition, they kept their prices low. In places where they had no competition, it was revealed that they jacked their prices up. Trump presided over one of the most massive deregulations of corporations in recent time. He's already promised he's going to do that again. He's going to weaken antitrust laws. He's going to let corporations become bigger and more consolidated, and he's going to let them get away with everything they want. That means if they want to raise your prices, they're going to raise your prices. And he's not going to lift a damn finger to do anything about it because he does not care about you. You are nothing but a useful idiot to him. As for the border, this is, pardon the expression, a trumped-up issue. In the coming weeks, you mark my words, the type of hyperventilating we've seen about the border for the past 4 years on Fox News and other right-wing media outlets, that's going to just quietly vanish from your TV screens. This is a game Republicans always play. Yeah, there are problems with America's immigration system, but those problems are not going to be fixed with draconian border crackdowns. And yeah, I agree. Biden's response on this was stupid. Giving Republicans almost everything they want in that idiotic border bill would not have solved the problem. It would have made things worse. But these harsh, strict crackdowns, they're just going to cost even more taxpayer money. It's been estimated that for Trump to deport millions of people like he's promised, the cost of that is in the billions of dollars. You need to hire more staff to do that. You need an immigration force that is hundreds of thousands of people strong. To put in perspective how many people that would be, the American military, and I don't mean one branch, I mean all of it. Every branch of the military altogether has just over 1 million people. You really think you're going to make the border agencies staffed with that many people? Almost half as much as the entire American military? Where are those people going to come from? Who's going to pay their salaries? You are. You're going to have to pay for their training. You're going to have to pay for their equipment. You're going to have to pay for the costs of imprisoning those immigrants that Trump wants to deport. Private prison stocks have been skyrocketing right now because the private prison industry is expecting a massive windfall in building and constructing new prisons to house migrants. Where does that money come from? Your taxes. And these sorts of measures, not only are they going to cost so much money, but you don't even understand how much this is cutting off your nose to spite your face. Your image of the immigrant is that they come here, they steal jobs, they get benefits and all this kind of stuff, and they leech off the system. That is so far from reality, it is not even funny. Fact of the matter is that immigrants, even undocumented ones, contribute far more to this country in terms of taxes and services they provide than they take out in terms of benefits. Most immigrants get almost zero benefits, especially those who are undocumented. If you're undocumented, you cannot receive benefits. Immigrants also commit crimes at a far lower rate than citizens. And undocumented immigrants, frequently the only crime they've ever committed is an illegal border crossing or overstaying their visa. And it makes sense. If you're an immigrant, especially undocumented, committing a crime is extremely risky because you have a high chance of being deported. You don't want to be deported. The whole reason you came to America is to get away from your old country. Now, you can find out more about these myths if you go to AmericanImmigrationCouncil.org or LearningForJustice.org. And while you're at it, I recommend researching the history of immigration law, because all of you who have been here for generations and say, well, my family came legally. Yeah, because back then, the only immigration policy to get into Ellis Island was to wait in line a few hours, go through a quick medical check, and then you were done. You didn't even need a passport. Only 2% of all immigrants were denied entry. The process now is far more Byzantine and expensive. It is impossible to navigate. I had my own personal experience with this a few years ago. I was thinking of returning to America during my first marriage, and I was thinking of bringing my wife, who's a Japanese national. We looked into the process. Even as an American citizen, even as with a wife who was married to an American citizen, the process to bring her over would have taken literal years and cost a lot of money. In contrast, My visa here to come to Japan, when I got a work visa, took 3 months to process. Cost, I don't even remember what it cost, but it was so insignificant. It was such an insignificant amount of money. When I renew my visa, it cost me about $40. And all it is a quick paperwork check. Are you still married? Yes. Okay. That's basically it. Have you paid taxes? Yes. Okay. That's all we really have to do. So, with the immigration system in America being so complex and convoluted and expensive, is it any wonder why people who are in desperate situations try to find ways around that system? What would you do if your very survival depended on crossing the border illegally? And also, it should be noted, many of the people coming here are people that we are responsible for displacing, thanks to our reckless drug war and the CIA's fuckery in Central and South America by propping up drug lords and dictators. Don't believe me? Go read the book Legacy of Ashes. Now, about abortion. If you believe Trump when he said he wouldn't sign a national abortion ban, then I'm sorry, but you are a fucking moron. Trump tried this play dumb routine before. Think back to the 2020 election and the debate with Biden. Biden was saying that Amy Coney Barrett will vote against abortion. She will vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. And Trump's response is like, oh, you don't know that. You don't know that. You don't know what's in her heart. Who told you she's going to do that? And then when the vote came up, guess what she did? She voted exactly like everybody knew she would vote. Remember how neither Vance nor Trump would explicitly promise to veto an abortion ban? Vance himself voted for an abortion ban. Vance himself promised that if an abortion ban comes up, he would vote for it, back when he was a senator. And if Republicans take the House, which again, at the time of this recording, is still up for grabs, but it's not looking good, one of the very first things they're going to do is pass a national abortion ban. And once that happens, your split ticket voting, because you were so concerned about the price of eggs, and you thought you could at least preserve abortion in your state, well, that's all over. You want to know what we're facing? Look up Romania abortion ban. There's an article from Foreign Policy, and it details what happened in Romania when they banned abortion across the country. That's what we have to look forward to if Republicans win a trifecta. And you will have been instrumental in making that happen. The blood of the dead women, the destroyed dreams of women who want to be mothers but won't be able to because they end up getting septic from a miscarriage, and they have to wait so long they suffer irreparable damage to their reproductive organs. That blood's on your hands. Finally, Gaza. Biden's policy towards Israel has been abhorrent and barbaric. You will get no argument from me on that front whatsoever. And yes, it is true. Harris did not do enough to distance herself from that policy. I completely understand the anger and frustration at that. But a vote for Harris would have been a vote for harm reduction and harm mitigation, and the opportunity to push her further left. Her foreign policy advisor, who would have likely followed her into the White House, is someone who has been outspoken about U.S. mistakes in its support for Israel and interventions in the Middle East. She could have been pushed, and she was likely just hedging her bets on opposing Biden because she was his sitting VP. Also probably because she wanted to avoid a flood of AIPAC money into Trump's coffers. And yes, those were stupid fucking decisions. No disagreement there whatsoever. But again, if you think Trump will be any better on this issue, you are an unbelievable moron. He has talked about rounding up pro-Palestinian protesters in America. He's talked about deporting Palestinians from this country. He's joked about developing the Gaza Strip into beachfront property. And that property, by the way, it wouldn't be for Palestinians in a Palestinian state. That'll be for Israelis. He's told Netanyahu, do what you have to do. And Netanyahu himself is a right-wing authoritarian fascist. And he is beyond giddy now that Trump won. So if you didn't want taxpayer dollars going to Israel, guess what? The floodgates have now been opened. Miriam Adelson, one of Trump's biggest donors, when she wrote him a big check, he asked her, what do you want? Her response, annex the West Bank. The floodgates are now open, and we could see an escalation of that conflict. So when you see more images of dead Palestinian children and a possible war between Israel and Iran, know that you were instrumental in making that happen. Finally, anger at the current administration. I don't know if there was a single day in the past 4 years when I didn't curse Biden's name. He's been a disappointment in a lot of ways. He hasn't gone as far as he could have or should have gone. But he's also been the most progressive president of my lifetime. And yeah, I know how bad that sounds. It tells you how crappy most of our presidents have been in my lifetime. And all things considered, I think he's done far more good than bad. And in the future, especially after we see what Trump will bring, I think we'll all look back on this time and realize it was a lot better than we thought. Yeah, the system sucks. I get that. The two-party system is terrible. I agree. The Electoral College is garbage. Absolutely. But accelerationism will just mean that good people are going to be hurt or possibly killed in the next few years. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic, look at the families Trump separated. Look at the children he psychologically scarred for life. Look at the women who are now suffering under his abortion ban, who can't get pregnant or are dead. Look at the millions who died needlessly from COVID. You voted for that. And if you feel the slightest bit of regret, guess what? It's up to you to make things better. You have to work your ass off to get back to a place where the people you voted against can trust you. I don't know how you do that. That's for you to figure out. It's not my problem. That's yours. But it's something you have to do. And my guess is it'll involve no shortage of eating shit, especially if people you care for end up suffering as a result of your decision. You can't make excuses this time. This isn't 2016 when we thought, oh, he's just a funny celebrity. He'll be a doofus for 4 years and we can laugh about it as he fumbles his way through. Now, we've seen the kind of damage he can do when he's restrained, and now he has fewer restraints. Do you know what they called the Germans who supported Hitler? Not because they agreed with his demagoguery, but because they were concerned about the economy, or that they wanted to feel patriotism again. They wanted to be proud of their country. You know what they call those people? Nazis. They're called Nazis. No one gives a shit what their reasons were, because at the end of the day, they supported a fascist authoritarian. That's what you've done. And I'm not saying we're going to go down the road of Nazi Germany. I sincerely hope we don't. But those are Trump's instincts. You voted for that, and you have to live with the consequences of that decision. Think about that. Think about the people that are going to be hurt now because of what you've done. Because you were so selfish that all you cared about was the price of eggs. And you thought, or maybe you thought it would be fun to watch the whole system burn down. I hope you reflect on that in the coming years. I sincerely hope you do. And I hope you come to realize that you were wrong. Because history will prove you wrong. Fascist turns in countries across the world throughout history, they don't go well for the people who were living in the countries at the time, and they don't end well. Not for the people who were living under them, and they certainly don't end well for the people who supported them. For everyone else, stay strong, Be there for the people who need you. Unplug from social media. I'm doing that myself right now. Read a comic. Watch a movie. Or just be with your families. There's a fight to be had, so be ready for it. Try not to let yourself become absorbed in doom and gloom and despair. The next few years are going to be hard, and I don't want to minimize that. And yeah, people are going to suffer. People are going to die. That's going to happen. Best we can do is help each other. So be ready for what's coming, but don't despair. Let this radicalize you. If you despair, if you give up and say there's no hope, that fucker wins. And I don't want him to win. I want him to be a failure, and I want to see him either drummed out of office as the miserable, failed excuse for a human being he is, and then thrown in prison. That's what I want to see. And I want to see his movement crumble down around him. But to do that, we have to have hope that we can bring it down. So that doesn't mean fighting in the streets, but it does mean possibly considering arming yourselves, taking self-defense classes. If you have daughters, get them enrolled in self-defense classes. They're probably going to need it. Start seeking out mutual aid networks. If you don't have one around you, start building one. Start building community with the people around you. And if you live in a community that's hostile to you, and if you have the means, consider moving somewhere else. I know that's easier said than done, but there is no easy way out of this. I sincerely hope that in a few years' time, I look back on this message and laugh at how ridiculous it sounds. I have to hope that there will be something good on the other end of this. I hope you can too. Again, the show will continue on. I'll keep recording episodes. We've got a new one out to discuss Hancock, so enjoy that. Enjoy these discussions, and be ready. That's all from me for now.